welcome to the True Crime News. I'm Morgan Rector, joined by Michelle Gower as my co-host. And going right into it, my first story of the week is an illustration of how if you're going to choose a dog to guard your stuff, or if you're just kind of hoping that it will, you have to choose wisely because not all breeds are good at it. Some are a little too friendly to guard your stuff. And there's this story has the headline, Dog Detects Thief, Does Not Deter Thief. Friendly Pooch accepts a belly rub instead of San Diego police. Friendly Pooch accepts a belly rub. They didn't add the punctuation correctly there. So a San Diego dog is excellent at detecting burglars. The next step could use a little work. As NBC San Diego reports, police released an unusual surveillance video of a burglar taking an electric bike from a homeowner's garage. In a rather peculiar turn of events, as the suspect was about to make his escape, he paused to pet the household dog who had entered the garage, the city's police department wrote. You're so cool, the man can be heard telling the friendly golden retriever. Golden retrievers are not known for their house guarding abilities. They're not security dogs. They don't the police don't use them. They are used as guide dogs. I think they're good for that because they're kind of similar to Labradors, but no, they're not too aggressive. In fact, he actually walked the bike back into the garage and put down the kickstand to cuddle with the dog. You're the coolest dog I've ever known. I love you too. You're a sweetheart. He gives the pooch a belly rub and accepts its kisses before leaving. The thief also appeared to offer up some advice to the homeowners, suggesting they not have your garage open. The bike is valued at about $1,300.
I absolutely believe this.
Do you have a dog or just a cat?
I have 2 cats now, but when I was a teenager, my parents actually bred AKC Goldens, and they are not the smartest.
No,
they are sweet, and they have big hearts, and they are loyal.
Yeah,
but they are not the most intelligent breed.
And they're good with kids, but probably not good at protecting kids.
No.
They say, German Shepherds are good for guarding your house. Rottweilers are, though the only thing is, like, they're so hostile to strangers that every time someone they don't know comes to the house, you have to do the whole thing where you hold their leash and let them smell the person's hand, hopefully without biting it. But yeah, that's a lesson learned there. Okay, what's your first story of the week?
It's a lot more depressing than that. This is about child abuse and endangerment.
Oh, there we go.
I chose a lot of morbid ones. Unfortunately, there's just not a lot of good things happening here right now. So the first story I have, it takes place not far from me in West Virginia. Donald Ray Lance and Jean K. Whitefeather are in police custody after 2 children were allegedly found locked in a shed in Sissonville, West Virginia. Deputy responded to a call about 5:45 p.m. local time last Monday afternoon. The caller saw a man open a shed, speak to some minors who were inside, and then lock the shed behind him. The deputies had to force entry into the barn where they located a juvenile male and female locked inside a 20 by 14-foot room. The deputies reported that the captive children had no access to running water, no functioning bathroom facilities, and there was no adequate hygienic care, food, windows, or anything in the shed. It was empty. The 2 children, a 16-year-old girl and a 14-year-old boy, which was her brother, informed the deputies that they had no means to exit the shed. This was a common occurrence for the siblings. She even explained that her and her brother were given food at 6 a.m. They were locked in the room until authorities arrived. When the authorities even got to the house, they witnessed another minor in the main house by themselves. The deputy said, I observed a small child through the window, appearing to be approximately 5 to 6 years old, sitting alone on the floor of a loft. I observed the child crying and was sitting close to a railing with an approximate 15-foot drop from the loft. Due to the distressed condition of the child and the risk of falling, forced entry was made to secure the child. The caretakers and guardians did not show up until later in the evening between 8:30 and 9:45 p.m. and were the adoptive parents of the children in the home. Whitefeather allegedly confirmed to the deputies that the children were left in the shed and said that, quote unquote, they like it. They were arrested on felony charges of gross child neglect, creating a substantial risk of injury. Bonds have been set for $200,000 cash. A preliminary hearing date has been set for the pair for October 12th.
Yeah, it's odd. The last 20 years or so, there's been this whole rash of crimes involving false imprisonment coming into the news, whether it's fathers doing it to daughters or random kidnappers or what. I keep hearing about kids being locked inside of things and being tortured, though these kids kind of got off light compared to, like, Joseph Fritzl's daughter, who we're going to discuss a little bit later because I found an article about him that came out this year. But yeah, I've noticed that suddenly that was a big thing. Yeah, Fritzl and then Ariel Castro. There's a lot of others of these cases of people locking kids inside of things.
Well, there was an Evil Lives Here episode a couple seasons ago, and it took place here in Ohio. And this boy, and I think it was a brother or like a stepbrother, were locked in a closet, like a bedroom closet in the dark for the majority of like several years.
Oh man.
And one of the boys was the interviewee, and just hearing about the trauma and everything from living in this dark closet, it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. I couldn't imagine. I mean, yes, the shed has more space, but it's not even double the size of one of our prison cells. And
Well,
there's
yeah,
no windows or anything. Like, they literally just had nothing. Like, what? Why?
there's room.
What could they like about being there? You know?
Oh yeah,
It's disgusting.
that was just done to be malicious. Like the story of Lauren Kavanaugh, which I did very early on in the show. I think it was like the third episode or something. But yeah, she was in there for like 6 years, and they only took her out to like rape her or traffic her, and rarely fed her and beat her up. And yeah, she's tried like committing suicide numerous times. She's jumped out of vehicles to do it, and so yeah, it's I don't know, but yeah, as I said, this just keeps coming up because I don't know. Ultimately, it seems like there's got to be like a dark side to parenting where some people just get so angry with their children that maybe they start having dark fantasies. Most people don't act on them, but obviously a few of them do. Like Stephen King was saying, the inspiration for The Shining was that he came home one day and saw his son had taken like a black crayon and marked up this manuscript. It was like the only copy of the manuscript because he wrote on typewriters back then. And he suddenly understood why some animals eat their young, because they will test your patience, do they not?
He was also on drugs and alcohol a
Oh,
lot during that time. That's ugh.
he wrote one of his books with like Kleenex in his nostrils because he did so much coke. He was having nosebleeds. Yeah. So maybe that had something to do with it too. The taste of success.
How much you want to bet it was Maximum Overdrive?
It might have been. It was. Well, there is a book. He said he doesn't remember writing Cujo at all because he
Mm-hmm.
was just high. Like it's like David Bowie said he had no memory of the year 1975 because he was just doing cocaine the whole year. So it doesn't do much for your memory, that's for sure.
It's putting it lightly. All right, what you got?
All right, my next one is headlines: Man caught at traffic stop with plans to shoot Parkland, other sites for attention and fame.
You stole my you
Oh, you
stole
have
one
them?
of my stories.
Oh, damn.
It's okay. You
Uh,
tell it.
Police found Henry Horton's manifesto in his vehicle after pulling him over for a broken headlight. Florida man was he allegedly planned mass shootings and stabbing sprees at I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Okeechobee High School.
Okeechobee.
Okeechobee? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Good job.
Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School and a church in Florida, but was foiled after a routine traffic stop, authorities had said. Palm Beach County authorities charged Henry Horton, 19 years old, with making written threats to kill after a Jupiter police officer, Jupiter, Florida, I presume,
Hmm.
Jupiter police officer conducting a traffic stop on the evening of September 18th allegedly found handwritten notes from the suspect detailing his morbid plans. After initially pulling Horton over for a broken headlight, the officer asked for his consent to search his vehicle and discovered multiple handwritten pages stating a plan to purchase firearms and kill everyone at OHS with my guns, which was later discovered to stand for Okeechobee High School. Excuse me, an arrest affidavit filed earlier this month states. The officer then spoke with Horton, who told him that he was planning on killing an administrator at Okeechobee High School, where he graduated last year, according to the affidavit. It's funny, usually your resentment of your teachers in high school goes away by that point, but this guy's not one of the most forgiving people in the world. Horton was planning on executing the plan on his 22nd birthday, January 2nd, 2026, at approximately 11:30 in the morning. Once he had killed the administrator, excuse me, Horton wished to murder another 14 people, accounting to a total of 15 victims. After this plan was executed, he wanted to drive down to Miami, Florida, to a church named El Rey Jesus and go on a stabbing spree and murder another 10 subjects, the affidavit states. The officer also located a bong and 3 fillet style knives in Horton's vehicle during the traffic stop. Horton advised he has been having multiple thoughts about mass homicide and wanted to execute them once he turned 22 years old. Horton also stated he had had mental health issues in the past. Horton said when he lived in Virginia, he voluntarily admitted himself into a medical facility for a mental health evaluation due to having similar thoughts. An officer allegedly asked Horton, a Domino's employee in Okeechobee County, where he was heading before police pulled him over. The suspect replied that he was heading to El Rey Jesus Church in Miami to recon or survey the area where he allegedly planned to carry out a mass stabbing spree and murder 10 people after completing his shooting at Okeechobee High School, according to the affidavit. You know, I've often had this feeling lately, well, actually, quite a long time now, that maybe they shouldn't publicize the names of the mass shooters because just like how they won't do that with people who commit suicide because they don't want to encourage anyone, maybe they shouldn't publicize the mass shooters because it seems to me like it's not just this guy who wants the attention and the fame. I think a lot of them wanted that.
Well, the article I read regarding this exact story even admitted that he specifically said he wanted to commit these acts to be famous. He
Yeah,
wanted to be remembered. And
yeah,
he
just like
also wanted to kill his stepmother too. So,
well, yeah, it's like Dylan Roof or the guys who committed the murders at the Boston Marathon.
mhm.
Like Rolling Stone put one of them on the cover. Like that was the worst thing they could have done because all the rest of them are just going to think, oh yeah, I'm going to get famous. And they're going to remember me.
Well, and what's weird too is the article I read was talking about how if he were to be released on bond or anything or ever get out, he would have an ankle monitor. Like that's going to deter any
Yeah,
future plan, and it's just like, are we sure that's what we really want to do? Like,
yeah. And it makes me wonder how do you sentence him? I mean, he didn't carry it out, but he had the intention. I mean, there's evidence of that.
yeah, I read that they had looked up, like, he was looking up, how to obtain an AK-47, and like his search history was pretty damning evidence as well. And I don't know. But I mean, I heard too that even in Florida, he had gone to, because Florida is one of the states, I know California has it, where, Virginia, you can openly admit yourself. You have to be the one to, admit yourself to those types of things. But in some states, it's an involuntary hold, and they will keep you for so long. I know someone who went through it because they were having like a psychotic break, and it was related to drugs and stuff like that. So they needed help. And they were in California, and they have a specific name for it. I can't remember what it is at the moment, but Florida, they did something similar. But again, I mean, he was already held in Virginia, and we don't know the outcome of what kind of treatment he had, if he had anything.
Yeah.
And now he's crossed state lines, and he's,
Oh yeah.
taking it to the extent that he has everything planned out. And
Well,
yeah.
the fact that he didn't carry it out would probably increase his likelihood of getting an insanity plea, because they just know he just had some bad ideas. It was possibly a psychotic break. It sounds like he's not in his right mind. But on the other hand, what would work against him is that obviously he was very meticulous, had devised a very detailed plan. So it's not like he was going to be running amok with a gun in his hand. I mean, he was thorough. So yeah, I guess that's quite a difficult thing legally to piece together.
I don't
I
know.
mean, yeah, you study criminology, so how much weight does that carry? Someone can prove you intended to do something.
I mean, it's all circumstantial, and it's going to come up to, if there's a jury, it's going to be on their shoulders to determine, is the intent enough? Is it worth sentencing him for so many years in prison for? And then we got to think about the repercussions of everything around it. What if they decide against it and they say, no, it's not enough? And then years down the road, he fulfills this, plan of his. Then what?
Yeah, yeah, it's like these pedophile hunter guys where they ambush these men that they met off the internet posing as young girls, and then their hope is like, well, we can bust them for intent, but that's the only thing you can bust them for, because if they didn't end up having sex with an underage female, then you can't charge them with that. And actually, the authorities are now saying these videos, what these guys are doing, it actually undermines their own investigations.
Yeah, I think the most they can get usually is solicitation charges for a minor,
Yeah,
unless, obviously more happens, but
yeah.
still.
I mean,
It's hard because you don't want it to get to the point where the crime has already happened, people have been hurt, but we also have too many instances of people being falsely imprisoned as well. So
yeah,
it's this delicate dance and balance with the criminal justice system, which is not perfect.
yeah.
And, there's rules in place, and sometimes it works, and unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't. So it's hard to say what happens next.
Yeah, and also, I mean, a criminal defense lawyer could very easily get one of those guys acquitted, because these aren't cops who are doing this. They're just guys from the internet, and they could probably, yeah, the lawyer could exploit the fact that these guys were being entrapped, and that their Miranda rights were not observed, and
Hmm.
yeah, so yeah, the FBI does not want people doing that.
Yeah.
Word to the wise.
All right. So speaking of pedophiles, we're going to move
Yeah.
into my next story.
All right.
A
Bring it on.
TikTok famous small town police chief traded incest videos via a secret Twitter/X account discovered during a search of his home office. Joel Justice Womachill, 38 years old, went by at ICT Bad Dad on the social media platform now known as X, with a profile picture of Pedo Bear, which is described as like a pedophilic cartoon utilized by individuals in the pedophile community.
I know it well. Yeah.
Yes, most of us who were on the internet in 2010 do. Um, Hello, kids, with a smiley face, read the banner across the top of the now defunct account's profile page. He described himself online as a 38 white male looking for that special girl that was raised right and wants to continue the tradition. If you love the little things in life, message on the wire, same name. His TikTok videos, as life of a police officer, regularly racked up tens of thousands of views, with some getting more than 600,000. The
Wow.
investigation into the alleged crimes began with a tip. Right around the same time he tendered his resignation last August, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received a cyber tip line report providing cloud storage for Verizon Wireless customers through Syncross Technologies, saying that a certain account had backed up a dozen video and image files of hardcore child abuse. The officials for NCMEC notified law enforcement, and then next thing you know, Homeland Security got involved, as well as Department of Homeland Security, and were both assigned to the case. They were able to trace the account to the phone belonging to Womachill. It was his only device. And an analysis of files turned up an array of abuse material with a pair of particularly sadistic videos involving young children. On August 15th, HSI interviewed Womachill at his work, while at his home, other agents spoke with his fiance, who directed him to his home office where with a search warrant, they seized a laptop, external hard drive, and other electronics. During the examination of his cell phone, they located his X account, utilizing the username and describing the avatar and other suspicious signs. Some 15 dick pics had been publicly posted to the internet, and agents determined the photos had been taken inside of his home. Within days, they had the warrant for the contents of his account, and once they searched his DMs, they found a February 14th, 2023 conversation with another X user who sent him a quote-unquote real incest video, after which he inquired about subscription rates to the user's premium incest Telegram channel. His laptop contained at least 851 thumbnail images linked to videos and images stored on the hard drive that agents took from his residence. Numerous images of child exploitation material were located.
Yeah, that's a $20 billion industry. I think it's huge. 600,000 views. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And, can you imagine being like the cops who have to go through all the images and videos? Because the thing is, it reminds me of this thing I heard about police sciences, where there's this exercise where like you're given a pencil and you have to describe everything about the pencil, and it seems obvious, but there are so many things you could miss, like everything from the length of it to like how many grains of wood that are exposed near the lead and all this kind of stuff. And so if you're going to go through somebody's child porn stash, if there's like 10,000 images, that means every single image you have to look at it carefully and describe every detail. Same thing with all the videos. And can you imagine how you'd feel at the end of that?
No. That is why having healthy coping skills and handling our trauma is extremely vital to our overall mental and physical health and well-being.
Oh yeah, I mean, being a cop can definitely take a toll on your mental health, no doubt. And it's a wonder that they all don't end up just being really bitter and misanthropic.
I mean, there definitely comes a point, especially when I was learning about criminal justice and all that, where they talk about how, most of the police officers who go into the force are doing it with good intentions. They want to be the white knight. But then once they get into it and they have experience with it and they see the things and encounter the situations that they do, that goes away and they do become hardened, and it does change them. And it's a lot.
Well, yeah, it's like not only are you encountering quite often evil people, but there's also like people who kind of cover up for them, or like some woman whose husband is beating her and she won't cooperate with the cops, and then maybe that's something that leads to them feeling less sympathy, less empathy, and the children are witnessing domestic violence and she won't do anything about it. So there's that too. So
Yeah.
it's hard to stay optimistic after that. All right, so I mentioned Josef Fritzl earlier, and there was an article that was published this year. The date was the 27th of March. The headline is Evil Josef Fritzl writing new book saying he's a good guy who gets fan letters. I am curious about reading that book, actually. Incest monster Josef Fritzl has said in a shocking new book that he is a good guy who receives hundreds of love letters from avid fans. The Austrian monster who locked his daughter Elizabeth in a cellar where he abused her as a sex slave for 24 years and fathered 7 children also says in the book that he has a number of illegitimate children abroad. The book, written by Fritzl with the help of lawyer Astrid Wagner, is titled Die Abgrund des Joseph, translated as The Abysses of Joseph Fritzl. Passages reported in Austrian and German media quote the man as saying, "In reality, I'm a good person," with him describing himself as a responsible family man. Fritzl, who is currently serving a life sentence, reveals in his book that he does not understand why his wife Rosemary broke off contact with him. The 87-year-old former electrical engineer also claims in the book to have had dozens of sexual affairs during business trips, adding that he has children with several Indian women. He also claims in the book that he has an African son who today is a respected lawyer. Speaking about his arrest in 2008, he said, "I was completely alone with my thoughts. There was no one I could confide in." The book also details the Austrian incest monster's daily life in the Stein prison in Kearns, and this is German, and der Danau, with him saying that he sees himself as a cut above the other prisoners. He reportedly avoids walking in the prison yard because there are a few prisoners just waiting to be able to beat me up. Fritzl reportedly is friendly with a prostitute murderer who he describes as a helpful, nice guy because he cooks for him on a regular basis. But he added, "But I can't eat too much because I don't want to get fat." He also claims that he receives hundreds of letters, mainly from women who are in love with me. Fritzl also says in the book that he wants to spend the last few years of his life in freedom, of course, saying that he would like to move back to Amstetten and perhaps set up a small business there. He has recently submitted an application to be transferred to a normal prison. Austrian courts have rejected previous attempts by the jailbird to be moved to a lower security prison. Fritzl, who changed his name to Meyerhoft 6 years ago, reportedly has dementia. Well, that sounds about right, considering how delusional he comes across as. He doesn't seem to think he's done anything wrong at all.
No, he is a nice guy that
Really?
has lots of female suitors.
Well, that's probably true because actually 24 hours after he was taken into custody, Jeffrey Dahmer got his first love letter from a woman, and he was gay. They all serial killers get love letters from women. I don't. Ted Bundy conceived a child in prison. Um, the Night Stalker Richard Ramirez, he got married in prison, so that happens quite a lot. Paul Bernardo got love letters. Boy, talk about the
No.
whole bad boy thing.
It's taking it too far.
You
No.
don't you think it's something else entirely?
I mean, yeah. Do I want to say it out loud? No.
Do you have any theories about why these women are attracted to murderers?
I'm sure it has something to do with their charisma.
Yeah, maybe.
A lot of them hid in plain sight and knew how to charm people, which is why it always came as a shock that it was them that did it and not someone else.
Yeah.
But I can't speak for the whole female population either. I have no idea. I don't even want I couldn't imagine getting into that headspace in the first place to where I'd be like, "You know what? I could have easily been a victim, but that's really hot." Like, like
Well, maybe
there's
that's
this there's just this ooky
yeah.
factor and it goes deep. I can't. Like, I just don't get it.
Maybe it's a holdover from evolution, like back when we were cavemen and there were no police to protect us, that every man had to be ready to kill if necessary. So maybe that, I mean, because there are still traits that we have from those days, and some people have carried them with them. And it could be the same, genetic line that leads some guys to commit murder. We haven't bred that out of the human race.
We could speculate all day on that, but I don't know that we'd get any closer to the truth.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
That's a can of worms I don't want to see the bottom of.
Yeah, I mean well, it's like how in high school the bullies got most of the girls, right? The guys they picked on didn't do as well with the girls, so
Right.
a lot of women are attracted to violent men. I read about this guy who was he was either in a street gang or with the mafia, and he said there were women throwing themselves at him all the time. So I guess it's a particular type of woman, not what they call sapiosexual now, the type of women. Definitely not that type.
All right, we're coming full circle with my stories. We're going back to people imprisonment.
All right.
All right, so Wiley, Texas. A Collin County woman will spend the next 75 years behind bars for the sadistic torture of another young woman who lived in her home. 27-year-old Simone Valdez Junkin, who still has burn scars across her arms, testified against her abuser, 37-year-old Alicia Calderon. In 2019, Valdez Junkin thought she was moving into Calderon's trailer in Wiley to clean and care for Calderon's children and a disabled elderly woman who also resided there in exchange for free rent. Valdez Junkin's parents say that communication then drifted. We thought she was just living her life, her mother said. For more than 2 years, Calderon was controlling Valdez Junkin with unthinkable tortures. She severely burned her arms, chest, and back by pouring a pot of boiling water on her. She deprived her of food, locked her in a dog crate, and cut off her communication to the outside world. It's heinous. You don't think that this kind of stuff can happen, her mother said through tears. On February 1st of 2022, Valdez Junkin got a hold of a phone and sent her stepfather a message saying she was locked in a room and needed help. It was the first time in 2 years that she had spoken with one of her parents. Her stepfather went to the trailer with deputies who had to remove stacked stones away from the front door in order to free her. She was down to 68 pounds, her head was shaved, and she had second and third degree burns. I initially did not recognize her stepfather said. All she wanted to do was just get away. It took me about a week and a half before I could really register that that was my daughter, Valdez Junkin's mother said. She was just skin, literally skin hanging off of her bones. She spent weeks in the hospital recovering from her injuries and needed multiple surgeries because of the burns. During sentencing, prosecutors revealed she stole or the woman Calderon stole nearly $80,000 from the disabled elderly woman that was in her care. The money was going towards tattoos, tire rims, and party rentals. Prosecutors say her husband Joseph Calderon was also involved. He's charged with elderly exploitation and abuse. He's currently out on bond awaiting trial. I think they're just terrible people, their neighbor said. Hernandez, the neighbor, said he saw Valdez Junkin on occasion, but did not know the abuse she was suffering. Yeah, she would always be dirty. They wouldn't shower her or nothing. Like, she would always just be dirty, he said. I wasn't there for her, and I hate that, Valdez mother said. The parents never suspected the torture. Collins County jurors convicted Calderon of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, causing serious bodily injury to the household member. Now, as Calderon begins a 75-year sentence in prison, Valdez Junkin's parents say that their daughter's determined to make the most of her life. During the punishment phase of the trial, prosecutors also presented evidence that Calderon spent $78,000 of the elderly woman's inheritance and had been cashing her Social Security checks for several years. They said when deputies found the elderly woman in the home, she was in such a bad condition that they initially thought she was dead.
God, I once spilled boiling hot water on my foot, and the uppermost layer of the skin just melted right off. So I can only imagine the pain she went through.
I accidentally gave myself second-degree burns by spilling hot tea on my hand, like on my knuckles,
Oh, wow.
and that was some of the most excruciating pain I can think of. I mean, I remember driving to the urgent care and I was on the phone because I was convinced I was going to pass out. And I was like, if you hear my car crash, just call the cops. Like,
Yeah.
it was
That's
bad. I could not imagine. No, I would never wish that kind of stuff on anybody. That's just disgusting.
what you were driving and holding the tea, and somehow it
No,
like,
I made the tea at home.
oh, you made a,
And it was the pitcher was like a steeper that you could sit on top of the mug and it would drain down into it. Well, I didn't put it on the plate properly, so I activated it and it leaked out all over my hands. I threw the
oh,
whole pot, and next thing I know, it's immediately started blistering, and the pain just got so intense that I was like, I messed up. So I knew I had to go get help. And I actually ended up getting a tetanus shot and having like special antibiotic cream and getting like my whole hand bandaged as a result. Yeah, it was not fun.
no, I wouldn't imagine. Well, yeah, I had to go to the hospital when I dropped it on my foot.
God, that would be horrible too.
And then there's that period where you're just waiting for the water to cool off,
Hmm.
because it doesn't just stop being hot just because it made contact with your skin. So, you still drink tea? Do you make it at home?
Absolutely. I make it out of a Keurig now. I don't have to touch
Oh,
it. I leave it and walk away.
I didn't know they had Keurig for tea. I thought it was just a
I
coffee.
just use it for the hot water. It's fine.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I drink chai. Do you drink just orange pico, or what do you?
Um, I don't do chai because doesn't chai have cinnamon in it?
I think so. Yeah.
I'm allergic to cinnamon, so I can't
Really?
have that. Yeah, it sucks. Um,
It's an interesting allergy to have. I've never
I
heard
have a
of
lot of interesting
it.
allergies. It's fine.
Yeah.
Um, I'll drink green tea, chamomile. I mean, I get like the blends with like fruits and other things, so it's just depending on what mood I'm in. Lately, it's been lemon and echinacea because that one has been helping with like my allergies and stuff like
Oh,
that. And when I wake up, like, especially if I go to concerts and I'm like screaming a lot, it helps like clear my throat and kind of just like reset my vocal cords. It just kind of like
no,
flushes
well,
everything out. It's nice. It's good. So,
I should try that for when I record, because sometimes it takes me a while to really clear my throat out.
right? It's
Yeah.
fun.
And they say that green tea has all these benefits. Did you feel any different? Did it do a lot for you, or?
It tasted great.
Yeah.
Whether or not it actually did what it was supposed to do, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I never thought about it.
It's one of those things you do where people say, "Oh, you if you eat this or drink that, it's going to be so good for you," and then you do it, and you don't feel any different, and you're just like, "That just went down the pit, and it's in the ether now." And I didn't suddenly jump up from the couch and go running around the room or anything.
Yeah, it's not like that. I mean, green tea, I've always liked green tea.
Hmm.
It's just something better to drink than pop. But I mean, I drink it more for comfort, not so much the health benefits. Like I understand there's health benefits, but that's
Yeah.
not top priority. Top priority is I want tea.
Is that an herbal tea?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Mm.
I know what I like. That's all I can comment on.
So
Um,
lemon what again?
Lemon and echinacea.
Lemon and echinacea. I got to remember
I
that.
get the Bigelow brand. I can
Bigelow.
text it to you.
All right, cool. All right, so my next story is another one. This involves pedophilia too. Only in a region of the world where there's actually, unfortunately, a lot of tolerance for pedophilia. The headline is 8-year-old child bride dies from internal bleeding after her wedding night. So just, I mean, every line of that headline is just a lose-lose scenario. So yeah, an 8-year-old Yemeni girl passed away from internal bleeding on her wedding night in the wake of a wedding to a man 5 times her age. A social activist and 2 nearby occupants said, for a situation that has caused an outcry in the media and recitation and resuscitated banter about child brides. So Arwa Othman, head of Yemen House of Folklore and the main rights campaigner, said the young lady recognized as Rawan was hitched to a 40-year-old man before the end of last week in the town of Midi in Hajjah territory in northwestern Yemen. On the wedding night and after the intercourse, she suffered from bleeding and uterine rupture, which caused her death, Othman told Reuters. They took her to a clinic, but the medics couldn't save her life. Othman said authorities had not made any move against the young girl's family or her husband. A local security official in the common town of Harada denied any such episode had occurred. He would have rather not been identified because he was not approved to address the press. Yet 2 Medi inhabitants reached by Reuters affirmed the episode and said that nearby clan leaders had attempted to conceal the occurrence when the news initially broke, cautioning a neighborhood columnist against covering the story. Numerous poor families in Yemen offer young girls to save money on the expenses of raising a kid and bring in additional cash from the dowry given to the young lady. A UN report released in January revealed the extent of the country's poverty, saying that 10.5 million of Yemen's 24 million people lacked sufficient food supplies, and 13 million had no access to safe water and basic sanitation. Human Rights Watch urged Yemen's government in December 2011 to ban marriages of girls under the age of 18, warning it deprived child brides of education and harmed their health. Quoting United Nations and government data, HRW said nearly 14% of Yemen girls were married before the age of 15 and 52% before the age of 18. The group says many Yemeni child brides-to-be are kept from school when they reach puberty. Discussions on the issue were shelved by political turmoil following protests against President Ali Abdullah Saleh in 2011 that led to his ouster. So a lot of people in that part of the world kind of look down upon us because we allow people to partake of pornography and drink alcohol. But I don't know. I think considering that this practice of marrying off children goes on there, I don't think they have a leg to stand on morally compared to us.
I don't even know what to say then. That just makes me instantly irate.
Yeah, like it goes on there, it goes on in Pakistan, in India. Um, Africa, I think, is another place where there's a lot of child marriages. Yeah, it's like it seems here like how could this possibly go on? Because that's like the number one taboo in North America, but over there it isn't. There's a big problem because of civil war, where a lot of fathers die, and a lot of their kids end up being taken in by these men, and in exchange for keeping them and protecting them, and feeding them, they clean for them and cook for them, and they also make them perform sexual favors. So yeah, there's a lot of pedophilia in that part of the world, and they don't do anything about it, especially if it goes on in the home, because there's no legal prohibitions for any kind of domestic violence or domestic abuse. The police view it as a personal matter and they won't prosecute, whether it's women or children.
Yeah, no. Mm-mm. No.
No, because yeah, but I'm actually I'm developing part 3 of the Satanic Panic episodes, and it went in actually mentioned how little girls who have been raped sometimes they die from it
Hmm.
because it can actually do damage to their organs. So what this girl went through is actually pretty typical of what happens if they get married to men at that young age. And,
There's biological reasons, you know. I just
well, yeah,
what do you gain by marrying an 8-year-old?
well, I know they are so they place such a high premium on virginity over there. Like
But
they really,
wouldn't you think it would mean that much more to have someone of consenting age who was
uh,
still a virgin?
they don't care. Well, they're behind us, like socially speaking, like by like 2 centuries. So I mean, like there was an English king who married like a 6-year-old, but I mean we got over that. We fucking evolved past it, but in that part of the world, they're still held behind. Women there are property, and children are too, and especially females. Right? Did you have one last story?
No, my last story was the one you talked about with the shooting.
Oh yeah, okay.
So,
All right. Well, we could leave it there. We're just at about 50 minutes. So if they, we'll have to check with each other again next week to make sure we don't have any overlap.
yes. Yes.
All right. Well, you have yourself a good evening then, and
All
thank you
right.
everybody. Thanks everybody for listening to the True Crime News.
Thank you.
Bye for now.